Kinia, how are you?
Hi, Cynthia. I'm great. How are you?
Oh, good. It's been like so many years
I know,
since.
and we're matching. That's so cool.
This is the first time I've actually using this Melon app. It's pretty cool. Got it on an AppSumo lifetime deal. Yeah.
Nice.
I explain a little bit to others what Pros and Babes is about, because I don't think it's often talked enough, like the transition from working or either deciding whether to go from working to stay at home mom for a few years and then go back to the workforce. So I would like to hear like your take on matrescence. Like I know what it is. To me, it sounds like a big word, but it sounds almost like it kind of reminds me of metamorphosis of like a caterpillar to a butterfly, essentially. Um, I would like. I have my notes here, so I'm just gonna look, can you tell briefly so for those of you who don't know Kenya, I actually met Kenya when my youngest Charlton was like a teeny few days old baby. And I was really excited about learning more about how to navigate the motherhood penalty because it's not often talked about. So my own personal experience goes like this: it's of no fault of anyone. I just did not know how to navigate. Like before going on maternity leave. So what happened was someone took my job when I was on mat leave. But when I got back, when I tried to apply for the job I really wanted, the person who was covering me for mat leave has had more opportunities um to advance, so they got it instead of me, and I felt gypped. It's like it's an emotional reaction, but it can help. But yeah, it's like things like that. It will be like good to like note of how to create strategies around that, essentially.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know Kenya, she's the founder of Pros and Babes, and she founded the first Pros and Babes, like it's an 8 week course thing, since 2017, and I joined in 2018. Yeah. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for having this important conversation. And I'm sorry about the experience you had. It's so many moms experience a rough transition between working, being pregnant, going on maternity leave, and then making the hard choices. And they feel like they're completely left alone to make those choices. So I felt that way too. I decided to put together these 8 week groups, right? And you were part of the one of the first ones. I was on maternity leave from my work in communications. Before that, I was an investigative journalist, and I just noticed that there was nowhere in Canada where we were really having these conversations. And one day in that sunny room where women like you with other kids, about 8 of us at a time, I said I want to make this my full time occupation, and I did. So now Pros and Babes has really grown into an education company where we work with women to turn the motherhood penalty into a greatest advantage. And I really want to stress the intention around motherhood penalty to a greatest advantage. Not how to stay in the motherhood penalty, but use it as a launch pad for your wildest successes and dreams. And it's absolutely possible, but you have to have the vision of who you want to become as a working mom and professional. And that is where most people don't go, because it requires answering so many difficult questions about, I'm going to make like a list. And, this is 5 years I've been doing this work, and every single one is very intentional. Okay. So if anybody is taking note and listening here, number one is your mindset. And that's where matrescence comes in. Many women who are very career focused before they had kids clearly notice that something has shifted inside. Like they might have loved their jobs, but the idea of going back to work full time might scare them. Or other ones can't wait to go back to work even more than full time. There's not one right or wrong response. But what happens is when we're in this really vulnerable stage, there's this like onslaught of information and people pushing their own agendas at you. It's political. Like your mom has a vision of how it means to be a good mom. Your mother-in-law, possibly, your employer has a vision of whether you should or shouldn't be working. Your husband, your friends, everybody, and you're just transformed into this new person. Like you became a mother. You didn't just birth a child, but you birthed a new identity, and you don't know what to do about it. You don't know where to find the answers, whether your feelings are valid, all of that. So this whole process is called matrescence, and you have to learn to inhabit your new psychology, your new body, your new relationship with your spouse, your new relationship to your work. And most of us want to grasp for answers outside. But here's where I say no, find the answers in you. And that's where I think our true power resides. So mindset is your beliefs, your values. We always do a values reassessment in any pros and babes program. I have a few. The main one is the Mom BA program, but a values assessment is key. It is not a fluffy exercise. Values are how you live your life, how you spend your time, who you choose to be in your circle, how you eat, how you dress, what job you choose, how you raise your kids. That's that invisible blueprint guiding you. So put a word on it. Actually take a list of values and select the ones that speak to you, and check with your partner. I mean, if you had a baby, typically there's a partner involved, right? Whether present or not present, or in most cases, right? Some people have their kids on their own through other methods, right? But often there's a constellation where there's two people that came together. So I'll play with this scenario today, respectfully acknowledging that that's not everybody's case. And so that's the foundation for everything. In matrescence, take the time to re-examine your values and have the courage to make a decision from those values. And what I see typically in many cases is that family, happiness, and health start coming first at the top of the list, and the top 5 core values. And many people are kind of shocked by that, because they went from being, working 60, 70 hours per week, like loving it, loving the hustle culture. And then how do I integrate health and family happiness? So that's step number 1 of the mindset, the values piece. If there's one thing people remember from this conversation, don't just think like this is some soft fluff. It's not. It's just the foundation of your family constitution. The second step we do is a vision of success. So I'm going to name about 12 pillars. I mean, sometimes there are 12, 14, depending on when I'm discussing this, but your life can be divided into all these categories. Just like at work, there's finance, HR, marketing. Your family kind of has these departments too, right? There's the department of mindset, leadership, there's finances, there's relationships, right, with your partner. So that's number 2, because that really changes after having kids. There's, career and family life integration. My word for that is career and family life harmony. I'm a musician, and so that's a word I like because it acknowledges there's tension and resolution, right? Balance is one that not many of us really like. It implies something that's perfect, attainable. It doesn't exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like ever.
Perfection is so driven by shame.
Yes.
I found, that was my first time experience. This is like, I can't attain this fluffy ideal of like perfectionism, because it once you hit that, it's just like, oh, here's like the next threshold.
Yeah. So much shame too that mothers experience, right? And
totally.
Not being good enough, not having the birth plan they envision, not introducing the solids the way they thought they would, they could, they should, the relationship around breastfeeding and nutrition, sleep. Like, it is such a hard experience. It's so demanding physically. We're supposed to look happy and, as if it's the best thing that happened to us. And of course, it's a beautiful, miraculous experience, but it also comes with significant consequences on physical integrity, right? Mm-hmm. And in our modern society, we don't have tons of rituals to welcome a new mother into her identity through matrescence. So all mindset, relationships, finances, career life integration, support systems, health. How do you define health? What is, spirituality? That's one that I'm talking more and more about, because I shied away from it before. I don't want to bring in my own religious identity and culture, but now with people who have worked with me for 3 or 4 years, we're actually exploring, because
Mhm.
as your kids get older, many people want to identify to a community of beliefs, and many of us, have immigrant past. So let's say like spirituality is a pillar that I'm adding, and it takes courage to sit down and actually ask your heart, like, what do I want? And often the first layer that will come up is maybe what your parents wanted for you. And so you have to dig deeper into, okay, what do I really, what is my soul
Mhm.
in this world, right? And that's where the magic happens. Cynthia, I want to share something with you, but today I was chatting with a client. She's been with us for 2 years and she's just starting a third year. Her family, their wealth plan grew 6 times their wealth. She's not making more money. She's not saving more money, but she did the mindset work. She realized what she wants for her family, for her relationships, and we partner with a wealth firm. And once you do this mindset work with the wealth side, you can, like, 6 times, Cynthia. Let's just let that sink in. We
Yeah,
used to
that's
talk about the million
incredible.
dollar wealth gap, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm determined to help mothers overcome the $1 million wealth gap. Well, that's like $6 million more in this family's wealth plan for their lifetime.
Mhm.
I know we can overcome the motherhood penalty. I don't love the term, like already just the term motherhood penalty, right?
Yeah.
That's horrible. But it starts with mindset and vision, and it includes holding space also for the things that were hard, right? It's not just like, I'm going to have such a positive vision for my life and all of this
Yes.
happy all the time, and I'll be the perfect parent, and I'll never lose my patience. That's not
That's
that's
not realistic. Yeah.
not. It's kind of, we will hold you, we will love you, and you have to do that for yourself too, and get the support systems, and have the courage to decide what you want, not just through the lens of the patriarchy and how you worked before, but what you think can be better in the world as a mother. The source of power of that, holy moly, like, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. So thank you for asking the question. I know it was a long answer, but to recap, matrescence is the emotional, physical, and psychological changes you go through when you become a mother. It's not unlike adolescence. You feel you're changing, your hormones are changing, your identity is changing. And many women feel very lost at that time. And to hear that there's actually a formal term for matrescence is very helpful. And then the motherhood penalty that we talk about, it's a bit of a cousin of the motherhood penalty, of matrescence, kind of the negative,
Yeah.
especially financially and economically, and also to your relationships. When you become a mother, certainly, like, your career can, it can really suffer depending on the field you're in, right? You take time out of the workforce, so your earning potential and your career capital get affected. So you have to be very strategic to take care of your mental health, to know what you want, if wealth is important for you, because for some people, like, money is not a huge value. They want to have enough to get by, but they don't want to build it, right? So but you have to be very strategic as a career woman, as a professional woman in the 21st century. It's not just going to happen magically that everybody will come to your rescue and be like, here, mom, let's help you make all that money back, right?
No,
So
it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. So you were talking about partners. Then my question would be like, how do we as like get on the same team as so say in they're in a family, or if the partner is not in there, how do you get like family members that can help support the mom on the same team so that they they can have the support and the career earning potential?
Yes, so that's an excellent question. Let's start with when there's a partner there. And I mean, there are so many different marriage dynamics, but the number one thing a mom needs to do is to acknowledge that her needs really matter and to put time on the calendar. So when I start off with a new participant or a new client who really struggles, one of the first things we do is put a quarterly day on the calendar for her. Not for the chores, not for the trash, not for buying clothes for the kids, but like a day where even you can start off by sitting in a coffee shop and just watching the action, or having a nap at home. So we put in a system in place where mom actually takes time for her own physical body. That's the foundation. That's the first recognition of my needs matter. My physical space matters, right?
Mhm.
So we do that. For some people, it starts with an hour, like, or two, and then we go up to 1 day per quarter, 1 day per month, ideally. Maybe it's a Saturday. Maybe some moms go and take a night at a hotel, and or bring the kids to in-laws or friends. Some people have out of town family, and so they have to rely on other support systems. The question is, though, to claim it. A lot of people will start by saying, well, they'll start making excuses like, I can't, I feel guilty, and I can't leave my kids alone. That's a choice we make. I know that that might sound like tough love for some people, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to claim self-care. And through that, you are also teaching your kids that taking care of your physical needs matter. Of course, there's a season of life where baby needs you 24/7. You're literally like a milk factory in some cases. Whether it's formula, pumping, breastfeeding, all of that requires time, sterilization, making, right? But you have to claim space for yourself and start feeling in your body again. Then that paves the way to have more calm conversations with the partner, because if you're constantly in survival mode, you're underslept, you're like under cared for, then the relationship with the partner is really transactional, and you're fighting, and you're just, who's doing this, who's doing that. So that's number one. Take time for yourself. I don't care if it's 30 minutes. I don't care if it's 1 day. Anyone can take like 1 hour. They can find a neighbor, they can find a friend, they can ask the partner. If you feel guilty doing that, then I would recommend additional counseling to figure out why it's so hard for you to take care of your own needs, right? Like, put your oxygen mask on. Number two, having that values discussion with a partner is critical. And you both have to acknowledge that you value the mom's career. And sometimes that can come at a financial cost. One of the reasons often women step out of the workforce is because their job might bring less money and they need the spouse's work. So they'll say, well, we'll focus on your career, and your career has to go because it doesn't make financial sense. So you actually both have to decide that the career matters and make the decisions to support that. And in the short term, it might be more expensive. There's a few months I spent like $5,000 or $6,000 on childcare because I got a contract, and I pretty much just broke even. And did it make sense financially in that moment for me to work? No, but it was an investment in my career capital, so that I could really continue staying relevant. So I mean, I could continue with other things like putting regular time for date nights and all of that, but it all starts with mom saying, my needs matter, asking for help, and trusting that people like to help. Many of us don't want to ask for help. We think we're the only one who can take care of our kid. There are so many people, whether in your church, whether it's your neighbors, whether it's your own family, whether it's friends. If you actually asked, hey, I need some time for myself, can you hang out with my child? They will do it for you, right? Yeah.
So in relation to that, kind of also want to touch like the invisible load of motherhood. I love how it has become like more on trend to talk about like the invisible load of motherhood, because what you described touches on the emotional load of mothers. It's just like it's not visible, but yet when birthday party comes, it falls on us to find like the gifts for like our kids' kids' friends' birthday parties.
Okay, so some people are not going to like my answer, and there's so much more complexity to this, right? It's like getting to a point where you're navigating emotional labor and mental load in a way that feels satisfying for you is a journey. So I'm just going to try to give a couple of shortcuts.
Oh
There
yeah.
are times where I did not get birthday gifts. Nobody, like, there was no terribly serious consequence, or I would just say to my husband, time to get the birthday gift, I'm gone, bye, working on this project, right? Literally, there are times where I made myself absent from family life for weeks on end. And the first time, it was actually quite forced. I was traveling to my grandfather's funeral in Europe. I was gone for 3 weeks. My son did just great with his dad, with my husband, right? Like, he ate well, they slept, they had activities. Sure, they had challenges, but removing yourself physically from the caregiving portions gives your partner the opportunity to figure it out. You can mute your phone. They can literally figure out, and they need to. So, there's a term called maternal gatekeeping, where again, we don't think that our partner can clothe the child right, can feed the child right, can choose activities, can sometimes you have to drop the ball, leave, and let them forge that relationship with themselves. And I will reinforce there are many more complex layers. It didn't happen overnight for me, but sometimes a life situation forces you to like let your partner just really take the helm, and they often do well. Maybe they'll wear different socks, maybe their outfits will be mismatched, maybe they'll eat chicken nuggets like
Oh
two
yeah.
times instead of the one you desire to, but they'll also have the benefit of forming the bond, and for them learning their own way of parenting and what matters, right? And
Mhm,
at the end of the day, Cynthia, there's a lot of things that we think we need to do, but
mhm,
there are other people's expectations of us, right? And with us wanting to keep up. One year I decided there's not going to be birthday parties. It was the pandemic. Even with family, like I'm not doing birthday parties, I'm not doing presents, and my kids were too young to know the difference. So rethink really, what are the things that you really want to do, or what are the things that society or your family or the social structure pushes you to do. And you have choice at the end of the day whether you say yes or no. Sure, there's going to be a price, somebody might be mad at you, but what matters at the end of the day is your own emotional health and sanity to be able to keep your family happy, right? So I don't mean to offend anyone with a little bit of tough love, but you really have to ask yourself the question, how many hours do I have in a day? And do I really need to say yes to this? And what's the worst that could happen if I say no and
yeah.
don't do all the birthday parties, right?
Mhm. It's also like available energy versus like what we can actually execute to, and just being okay with that. Usually, uh, I just want to quickly mention that um I'm monitoring the comments. So far, no questions have come in the motherhood group. Um, and the last question is, what's the number one thing we should never outsource as parents?
So I'll go back to the first question is our values. We shouldn't outsource values. You can outsource cleaning in your home, meal prep, but the values are the DNA of your family's culture. And failing to decide how you're going to steer your ship based on values, to me, is a recipe for disastrous. Maybe a strong word, but you can wake up 5, 10, 15 years later and think like, why do we make the choices we did? Sometimes people get really sick and they're forced to ask these questions because they prioritized working, way more than their health and their family life. So never outsource your values, never just absorb without reflection what you're supposed to be as a working mom. Our generation is very different typically from our mother's generation. We grew up at a time of technology where you don't shut down your work when you come home. You actually have to make a real effort to disconnect yourself. There are other challenges that come with living in a different city than your parents, right? Even like nutrition, everything is different. So we have to create our rule books and have the courage to look inside. So don't just blindly outsource the values. Have a reflection on what you want to keep and honor and what you need to do in the 21st century to thrive as a family.
Because I always hear like, oh, you can lessen the burden of like your motherhood load by like figuring out what to outsource, but then I don't think people actually stop themselves and figure out like what tasks to keep and what not to
Yeah, and
what
what are
not.
we going to do with the extra free time? There's no point in outsourcing a bunch of stuff if then all you're going to do is add more to your busy list and stay frantic. I would say if you're going to outsource, make sure that you're able to pour back into yourself, into your calm, and into your health, or into what you value truly. Right? It's outsourcing is a little bit more complicated than that overall. It can really help, but you have to be strategic about it.
And for mothers who are either they're stay-at-home moms wanting to return to the workforce in a few years, or if they are uh, currently on mat leave and wanting to learn more about Mom BA, where can they find you?
So I would go to prosandbabes.com and connect with me there. And I would say probably the second option or the first option, I would say go on LinkedIn and you can connect with me there. There are a lot of videos. You can send me a text message or a DM, and then I'm happy to chat with you about just to assess where you are in your life and what do you need, whether it's the mom BA or what's your next step. Sometimes talking with somebody who has a positive vision for your life can help you just get out of the muck and move forward in the right direction. So prosandbabes.com or Kinia Romanowska on LinkedIn are a great place to start.
Cool. And I guess I got asked, like, so I'm a full time. I see this a lot too. Is like full time mom, like struggling with the mindset of like up going like they maybe not have worked for like 10 years or 8 years or whatever it is, and then they want to go back to work, and they're now hit with like, what do I put on my resume? Do you coach them through that?
You know what? I That's a really good question. I would put like I would put the role of CEO on that resume or something equivalent, because I would really make a list of all the skills that you have, and maybe there's different ways to group information on a CV that's not just by date but actually by skill. I remember working with a career coach earlier in my career when I was younger, and they actually grouped more by skills and then possibly put the employer as an example, so it's not so much focused on the gap. And as a mother, I mean, there's so many videos about it right now. Like there's that famous Hallmark card, right? The mom job, the 365 days, no vacation. You're the chief nursing officer, you're the chief financial officer, you're the project manager, you're the IT, whatever, all of that. So make a list of all the skills that you acquired as a mom, and I could probably help somebody put together a resume like that. The big thing, Cynthia, it boils down to confidence and vision. We often
Yeah.
feel we're not worthy, we need other people's validation, but I would encourage a mom who has been out of the workforce to really like look inside that place and say, there is a place for me out there, someone who needs my skills. I will reflect on my skills. I will talk to people, even if you've been on the job market for the last 10 years and perhaps you have a career transition or you move and you have to pound the pavement. They might have as much difficulty finding a new job than a person who's been out of the formal marketplace for 10 years, right? It
Okay.
takes putting yourself out there, and it takes belief that you have value and you matter, no matter
Cool.
what your situation was. So that's what I would advise. Like, know
Yeah.
that is a place for you. You have skills, and you could put like a really fun, spunky title. There's so much more acceptance for that these days,
Oh yes. Yeah.
especially, right? Yeah.
Especially conflict resolution.
I negotiate with angry people who have no emotional self control. Yeah,
That's how I feel some days. It's just like, okay, this is a conflict resolution.
yeah, and negotiation. What about you, Cynthia? I know you've changed from you've really pivoted careers, and I see your business blossoming. How has that experience been from you going from an employer situation to you being your own employer and a business owner?
It's hard. Oh my gosh. Like 2022 was a lot of like mindset,
Yes,
and there was a lot of lessons learned throughout the process. It's not all like sunshines and rainbows,
yes,
but it's a lot of like, okay, so this is what I'm not gonna do for next time, and this is probably like what the processes are. I'm actually considering myself lucky because my husband Mike, he takes care of the kids a lot. He
yes.
takes a lot of that emotional load from me. Um, it's but yeah, a lot of that comes down to like the communication piece. I'm still working on that with like communicating with Mike, so it's a work in progress still.
What do you love the most about your work as a photographer?
So it's more creative for sure, and I actually really like working with other small businesses too, because they see that I'm like interested in so many other things than just photography. Say like marketing is one of them, and the other tiny side bit that I have learned as a small business owner is like search engine optimization. So like all these like little sub skills, it's really neat to like talk to other small business owners or like typically like moms who also run small businesses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And what are you most proud of? I see your updates on social media about your boys and, piano and skating. What do you think you do really, really well as a mom?
I think just I don't think I see that's my struggle. I don't see myself as like a good mom. Sometimes I see myself as like a mean mom just because there's sometimes it's the kids' best interest not to give what they think they want, but also to equip them with like lifelong skills, so they are getting the experiences they that I would not have had when I was their age. So it's just it's different for every family for sure. I think like the successes that I've had with my own kids is just like equipping them with like the confidence that they believe they can do it. The cutest is when they're like the toddler age, when they're like so frustrated and so angry, and then just a simple like you can do it, and then Arthur especially, he was like not even two, just a little over one, he's like I did it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the cutest. And then looking at him like how he just like I did it, I'm like I could use some of that in our lives, because often we beat ourselves down and we overthink. I'm an overthinker. I like come up with like the worst possible scenarios so that I'm like ready for those scenarios, but I'm told to like stop doing it because it's toxic, it's emotionally very taxing.
Yeah. Well, I hope that as we enter into the weekend on Friday, you think about all the reasons you can celebrate yourself and how you're just giving your kids a wonderful opportunity to experience life, to be alive. You love them so deeply. You made a big leap from, an employee reality to being a business owner. That takes a lot of determination and persistence. Those first year in business test you very much. You're learning so many new skills. And you did that. You took a leap of faith and you did that. And your kids are witnessing that in you,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Being
they're no
bold
they're
and
they're
yourself out.
noticing like they're noticing how more cognizant of like money going in and out is. We tell them, so we can't afford this because this is like how much our budget is.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So please take the time to celebrate you.
Oh yeah. Thank
You're
you.
you're awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for participating in this. And if there are any questions, so for anyone in the motherhood group or even on my personal timeline, if you have any questions, just type your comments or questions. And if I don't know any answer, I can ask Kinia, or you can also join there's a Pros and Babes Work Like a Mother group on Facebook, and I'll link it in the motherhood group.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, yeah, it was great seeing you today,
Yeah,
Cynthia.
have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.